Well, for the newcomers today, I'm known as the Right Reverend Roofer. We put a new roof on this place a while back, so got to remember the important things around here. Skip told me I might need to stay. Oh, we're good? Okay, I can wander around then. Namaste, everyone. It is great to see everyone and to be here with you today. And Reverend Bronny's right. In keeping with this month's theme of love dissolves all fear, I'm going to talk about that. But Cheryl, if you think your topic with love was too broad, you should have seen the response. Somebody emailed me and said, "What's the name of your message today?" And I said, 4-letter words. And I got back kind of a happy pace thing. I think it was in the email back. I'm not quite sure what. But 4-letter words. And you know what I'm talking about. Real, love, pain, holy, things like that. Fear, big 4-letter word in fear. So as I go through today, and if you see me stop and leave the blank open and I go like this, you just fill in the most appropriate 4-letter word you can come up with, or whatever pops into your head first, whether it's appropriate or not. But since it may not be appropriate, let's just do it silently. Let's do it silently. I really enjoyed watching Larry's message from last week. And yes, Larry, I do know who Soupy Sales was. I did not know, though, that what he talked about. So what do we mean by that? I thought that was very, very, very interesting. But if you weren't here last week, or you haven't seen the replay, watch it, because his take on words about love and the lyrics and titles from songs are extremely witty. Very, very, very good. I enjoyed that. And it got me to thinking, so what do I know about love, or what do I think about love? And one of the things that first popped into my mind was where love is not used. One of the things that I think we hear is time heals all wounds. And I think that's a bunch of, you said junk, right, Edie? Right? Okay. I think love heals all wounds, or certainly love can heal all wounds. And that's what we talk about. What do I know about fear? From my past experience running TV stations all over the country, whenever a TV station was being purchased, there were always people who were worried about losing their job. They were worried so much about losing their job, they forgot to do their job. And then when they were let go, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. So that's what I knew about fear. Larry talked about C.S. Lewis's 4 different types of love as described by the Greeks. But what I really thought was interesting was the history lesson on the Hebrew Bible about, I think it was the 9 words of love. And I'm going to have to go back and reread the Torah, because there's some spicy parts in there that apparently I just kind of glossed over the first time. Wasn't quite aware of that. He also talked about Sam Harris's story about the experience of unconditional love. And that's what Greg Bear talks about in his book called Real Love. And I'm going to go over that a little bit. I think one of the big things Larry talked about, though, are dispelling what we think are truths, or at least questioning absolutes, what we think about stuff like that. He asked us to really question, does everything really fall under the umbrella of love and fear? Is anger just fear in disguise? Because for me, it really is, but perhaps not all the time. Greg Bear says that anger is a type of getting and protecting behavior, and it works really, really well because you get immediate response with it, but it doesn't lead you to real love. It leads to imitation love. And so I don't know whether everything really falls under the 2 umbrellas of love or fear. Kind of feels like it does most of the time. But I think it's more important to probably think about or pay attention to how we feel, because how we feel will dictate our thoughts. How we feel is what creates the world in which we live. How we feel is often more important than how we think. And if I'd have heard that a few years ago, I wouldn't have agreed with it. But to me, I think everything comes from the feelings, which affect and create the thoughts, which go out and come back to us. But then Larry went on to make another point. He said, don't take things at face value, questioning these absolutes again. He said that Greg Bear, the author that I'm going to talk about today, might be just a person. He might not even be an authority on love. And so if I use that limited description, then my mind just started to go off on a tangent. Then how do we respect the writings of Paul? How do we come to understand and respect the writings of Ernest Holmes, Charles Fillmore, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra? Who made these people experts in their field? And if you use that definition, then it gets pretty narrow. So just as I was about to get really ticked off when I was thinking about that, I took a deep breath because it really affected me. And I thought, not only is it a good idea to question these things, we must absolutely question these things and not drink the Kool-Aid just because it feels good or everybody else is doing it. It takes somebody to really have a different thought process like that, so we're not a bunch of cattle and just following things blindly. So once I took a deep breath, Larry, I did relax, and I do appreciate that. Ernest Holmes said that one of the great difficulties in the New Thought movement is that we are likely to indulge in too much theory and too little practice. As a matter of fact, we only know as much as we can prove by actual demonstration, and that which we cannot prove may or may not be true, but that which we can prove certainly must be the truth. I was talking to somebody this morning, and I said, at least in the New Thought movement, we have to take 100% responsibility for what's going on in our life. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. And sometimes that's not the most encouraging thing to say, but we believe that what's happening in our life, whether we created it, co-created it, we have 100% responsibility to determine how we're going to respond. That's responsibility, the ability to respond to what happens in our life. So Larry is absolutely right. You must try on these ideas that you hear us talking about up here, the stuff that I'm talking about. Does it fit? How does it feel? Is it congruent? Are you congruent with what you're hearing? Are you congruent with what you're reading? Are you congruent with what you're watching on television? It's up to you. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but you can check in with yourself and determine how you feel, and that'll tell you whether it's going to work or not. You all have all heard me speak here before. All I really ever talk about is what's going on in my life. Things that are going on at work, the hard things, the issues that I have with my dad. Told you about the story of a couple of years ago. There was a 6-month period that my mom was in the hospital in a coma with the West Nile virus. I was nursing Reverend RJ back to health from a triple bypass surgery in my home. My daughter had been in the hospital. I'm going through a lawsuit, and I was going through the end of a 20-year relationship and a divorce. Folks, you add in a pickup truck and a dog, you got the great lyrics for a country western song right there. I mean, whether I co-created that stuff or not, it was my responsibility to, respond to it. What was I going to do with it? It's just the trials and the tribulations of what's going on, and I don't talk a lot of theory. You don't hear me quote a lot of scripture up here, but when you do, I'm just as likely to quote the Bhagavad Gita, the Science of Mind, the Tao Te Ching, as I am the Bible. My idea is that there's one source. There's only one truth, no matter what you call it. And there are many paths, many ways to get there. And far be it from me to tell you how to get there. But when I come across a book or when I come across a source or something that helps me, you bet I'm going to share it with you. And I'm going to try to do it passionately. Because all I tell you about is what I'm going through, what works, where I've stubbed my toe, where I've really screwed up, and where I'm starting to see the light. That's what I talk about. And the reason I do that is because I want to alleviate my own fear and my own pain. And if I can help do that for somebody else, so be it. I mean, that's what I really work on. And it reminded me the story about the guy that fell down in this hole, and he's yelling up to people as they're walking by on the street and stuff like that, and nobody will stop. And he's yelling out, please help me. I'm down here and I can't get out. Even friends that he knows, people that he knows, they're walking by and they're either too busy or they can't help him out. And then he sees his buddy Joe. He says, hey, Joe, please help me. I'm down here and I can't get out. And Joe walks right up to the edge and looks in and just jumps right down in the hole with him. And he says, Joe, what in the are you doing? He says, now neither one of us are going to be able to get out of here. And Joe says, no, that's not the case. I've been down here before. I know how to get us out. I know how to get us out. You know, that's an analogy, a metaphor, or a story that I heard many years ago about addiction, alcoholism, any type of pain where somebody else, and I'm going to talk about wise men and wise women in a few minutes, what we're looking for in our lives to help us find real love, they can be a way shower. And so if I find a book, if I find something, that's what I want to share. It's very real. It's always not politically correct. It's always not real pretty, but what you get is what's coming straight from here and not so much from here. So now I'm going to share with you about this book. It's called Real Love. It's by Dr. Greg Bear. I met Greg about 12 years ago. I think it was 2004 down at Unity in El Paso. I went to a service. I stayed for the lecture later that day and read the first chapter of this book. And until I heard Reverend Bonnie talking about it 2 weeks ago, it has sat on my bookshelf for 12 years. But as we all know, the teacher will be there when the student is ready. I haven't put it down in the last week and a half. I can't believe that I didn't read through it the first time. It has hit me on a very profound level. I must be ready for a certain aspect, a certain level of healing for what it is talking to me in my heart right now. He says that real love is caring about the happiness of another person without any thought for what we might get ourselves. Real love is when other people care about our happiness without any concern for themselves. Real love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. He says that with real love, nothing else matters. Without it, nothing else is enough. Real love is, I care how you feel. Conditional love is, I like how you make me feel. It's important for me as a single father raising two beautiful children that I know the difference between real love and conditional love or imitation love. It's important for me to know that because I want to be able to give real love because I want to attract real love into my life. Conditional love is what people give to us when we do what they want. Think about that. Conditional love is what people give us when we do what they want, and it's often the only kind of love we've ever known. You know it's conditional love if you get disappointed or if you get angry with people. If you're feeling disappointed or angry, it's a sure sign we're not unconditionally loving them. Now, as children, when we made the football team, when we made good grades, when we washed the dishes without being asked to, we got a certain response from our parents. They looked happy. They sounded nice. They said things like, way to go. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy. But if we failed a class, when we got in an argument with our sibling or a fight, when we tracked mud across the floor, when we wrecked the car, did they respond in the same way? With rare exception, did they not? They did not. Did they kindly speak to us? No, they frowned, they rolled their eyes, they let out an exasperated sigh, and they used a tone of voice that we did not hear when we were pleasing them. We weren't getting that tone of voice that we felt love with. Some of us were even yelled at or physically abused. For the most part of my life, I went around with my dad's boot up my... But this giving or withholding acceptance based on another person's behavior is the essence of conditional love. It's a pattern that was imprinted upon us as we were children. It wasn't necessarily bad, but it's what our folks knew. Now, while our emptiness may have begun in childhood through no fault of our own, believe me when I tell you again that we are responsible for our choices now. And that's the kicker. So there's the foundation, and we can't build a house on unless it's a solid foundation, I should say. If we were not unconditionally loved as children, that's the kind of foundation we have. And it doesn't matter whatever we put into the walls, the doors, the windows, the ceilings. Unless we have a solid foundation, the house isn't going to be what we need it to be. But in the absence of real love, we will attempt to fill our emptiness with imitation love. And he says that imitation love comes in 4 forms: praise, power, pleasure, and safety. He says that they're addictive, that they're deceptive, just like cocaine, just like cigarettes, and they're easy to use. And although these effects are temporary, we still pursue imitation love in its many forms because it gives us a sense of happiness that certainly feels better than in the absence of no love at all or real love. We'll take anything that we can grasp onto. So now fast forward from childhood to your adulthood. Now imagine that you've met that special someone, and guess what? They were raised just like you were, with a whole bunch of conditional love. But you're going to love me, right? And you're going to make me happy, right, Cheryl? You're going to complete me, right? Man, I wish I could go back and change so many things. Dr. Bear says that people are quite sincere when they say, I love you. But if they just understood what was truly happening, they would say, really loving you would mean caring about your happiness, but I care a lot more about how I feel. I like it when you do what I want. When you listen to me, I feel flattered and important. When you spend time with me, I don't feel empty and alone. I feel good when I'm with you. But you see, when we don't feel unconditionally loved and we tell someone we love them, we're only expressing a selfish wish for that person to keep making us feel good. But when we say, I love you, our partner hears us promise that we will continue to make them happy. And those conflicting expectations cause the failure of most relationships. For some, the meaning of I've fallen in love is I found someone who will give me all the imitation love I want. Since we're not receiving real love from our partner, and we rarely, if ever, get enough imitation love, we revert to getting and protecting behaviors. And again, he describes these as lying, attacking, acting like a victim, clinging, or running away. Deep down, we know these are not healthy behaviors, but we get a lot out of them because they produce immediate results. I mean, think about it when you get angry. I mean, y'all have probably never thought about me getting angry about anything, being a redheaded Leo. But when I do, I get immediate results. We were driving up here today. I asked Baylor to drive so that I could spend a few more minutes with my message. And we was doing 75, and I said 70, I mean 70. But then I thought, oh my God, I'm talking about real love today. Relax, Bram. Just relax, and Baylor, slow down. When I think back about when I first started dating their mother, and we were fiancés, and we were talking about the agreements, what we were going to do, I think back about that process and some of the words that I used, and I know what my intent was, and it was really good, but it absolutely was conditional love. It was more quid pro quo. All right, Stacy, I'm going to do this if you'll do this. Or actually how it went down, kids, was I will do this. What are you willing to do? And although my intent was good, probably not the healthiest way to communicate. There shouldn't be a quid pro quo. You should do things because of who you are and how you were raised and because you have love. Love people unconditionally. Love people because that's what they need. Love people because that's what's coming out of you, not because you're wanting something in return. That's where my mistake was. That's how I was conditioned. That was my pattern. Not so much what I said, but how I said it. I think we can have unconditional love for people, certainly in our heart. I mean, all of us have what we think is unconditional love for our children, but I told you how I treated Baylor this morning driving up here. And I really wanted to be kind because I knew I was going to be talking to all y'all today. But I think what messes up this unconditional love, which we're all capable of, is what Larry and I know about through NLP, and it's our communication patterns. It's what we say, but more importantly, it's how we say it. And it's those communication patterns that create the conditional love, the quid pro quo. I'll do this if you do this. Because again, unconditional love is doing something for somebody and not expecting anything in return. But if we're not receiving what we desire in our relationships, he says we have about 4 things that we can do. One is change your partner, and we all know how easy that is. The second thing is to live with it and like it, live with it and hate it, or leave. And really, there's only three options because you're not going to change your partner. It's just that really doesn't work. But we got to remember that people are doing the best with what they have because you can't give what you don't have. That's another thing that he talks about in the book. We do the best with what we have, but if you don't have unconditional love, you certainly can't give it. It's that old adage, when you squeeze a lemon, what do you get? Lemon juice. When you squeeze Bram, what do you get? Well, if I've been meditating, you get love, peace, and kumbaya. And if I'm not, don't cut me off in traffic. Because there won't be 4 or 5 fingers waving it back at you. I'm just keeping it real, I know on my license plate, though, it does say Rev Bram, so I've got to keep a better mindset. One sure way to kill the possibility of a healthy relationship is to need to always be right. It's a tough thing. Choose love over choosing to be right. I can't tell you how many times I wish I could go back to either arguments or even just exchanges with my ex-wife, just to be kinder. Not that I want to be married anymore and stuff like that. We both got great lessons from that, and we're fantastic friends now. We have a loving, wonderful, healthy relationship. But I wish I would have chose love instead of choosing to be right or to get my point across. I was too hard. And it really hit home when I saw how miserable my daughter was after our divorce and how disrespectful she was to her mother because she thought Stacy messed up everything. And even though I was really hurt in the divorce and stuff like that, it was much more important for me to realize at that moment that my daughter needs to be healthy instead of me being right. So I quickly explained to her the failings that I had as a husband. And it takes 2 people to it up, and it takes 2 people to make it right. Really important that I choose love over being right. We just got home from a family reunion. A bunch of us went up to Colorado a few weeks ago, and we sat out around the campfire one night talking about the only things that families are supposed to talk about, religion and politics. And, there was easily 20 of us, and it dwindled down over time, but and we have a very diverse family. And I'm so glad that it came to me before we got into the heat and the passion of the discussion that I love you. I want all of you all to know, as I told them, that I love you. We may disagree about things, but I respect you and I love you. So long about the time, I think it's about 1:15, and it's time for me to go to bed. And I looked at my phone, and it was 4:45 in the morning. I'm really glad that I told them all that I love them because it got really heated. And I come across too strong sometimes. Greg says that anger is always wrong and that the consequences are just too severe. Now, in the past, I've thought that anger could be okay if it's expressed in a healthy way. But since I rarely do that, maybe I ought to rethink that. We have choices. You can fight, flight, choose love. Anger is fighting, love is allowing. So I don't know if I agree with the author here completely, but I don't think that diminishes the fact that I can choose other things in his writings and his teachings that are congruent with me, that resonate with me. I mean, I don't fully believe or understand and under my current understanding of everything that's written in the Bible. But that doesn't mean it doesn't speak to me. That doesn't mean I can't pull pieces out that really resonate with me. But for me, my anger is usually a reaction to fear, and fear is almost always about not feeling loved. So how do we get to a feeling of unconditional love? How do we love unconditionally? Greg says that we must find a wise person. Find somebody that you can trust, somebody that can listen to you without judgment. Tell them the truth so that you can be seen for who you truly are, accepted for who you truly are, and loved for who you truly are. You tell the truth so that you can be seen, accepted, and loved. It only takes one person to start to do that for you, and that starts to fill up your bucket that Reverend Bonnie was talking about 2 weeks ago. You don't need everybody to do that. That one person that'll listen to you and love you that way will fill your bucket. And then what that allows you to do is to be more open and accepting of your partner. I want to read to you from the book a conversation and what it might sound like when you're doing something like this. I'd like to reveal something to you and tell you the truth about myself. I've never felt unconditionally loved. All my life, I have felt empty, alone and afraid most of the time. I've tried to fill my emptiness with whatever felt good at the time: praise, power, money, approval, sex, drugs, things like that. To get those feelings, I have manipulated people, I have lied, I have attacked them, I've acted like a victim. I've also protected myself from being hurt by lying, attacking, and acting like a victim or running away. Of course, I've never talked about any of this to anyone because I've been terrified that people would judge me, laugh at me, and withhold their love from me, criticize me. But now I want you to know the truth about me so that I can finally be seen for who I really am, and so I can be accepted and loved. I mean, this book is almost a primer on how to be a therapist. There's some serious stuff in here. I'm probably going to buy 20 copies or more and hand them out to friends of mine, that just people that I love, people that I know need help and acceptance, people that don't have the type of relationship that I have with my ex, that are trying to raise kids, the most important thing that we'll ever do. Once we start to feel real love, we can begin to accept our partners, and they will begin to feel that love and happiness. As I said before, trying to change your partner is just too hard. There's too much to it. When you eliminate the behaviors and learn to give your partner the gift of your acceptance, everything changes. Get this book, read it, become a wise woman, a wise man for other people, and it'll help your own relationships. So what four-letter word are you using to fill your bucket with? Or is it love or is it fear? Here's to having the faith to open up to someone you trust so that you can tell them your truth, so that you can be seen for the truly magnificent creature that you are and be accepted and loved unconditionally. Namaste.